the book's 94 pages long. There isn't a lot of material to work with.
Sure.
We have the Gospels. We have he's the major figure in the first part of Acts. We have some related stuff, however. The writings of the Apostolic Fathers, Clement of Rome and Ignatius of Antioch, who I point out in the book. I said they were almost certainly, both of them, proteges of St. Peter.
Sure.
Because Peter first spent some good amount of time in Antioch, and then he went on to Rome. And these apostolic writings, as they're called, situate both Clement and Ignatius within a kind of circle of which Peter was the leader. There are other texts as well. There was a 4th century church historian by the name of Eusebius. And Eusebius is useful here, even though he's 300 years later, because he was using, an earlier Christian figure by the name of Hegesippus, who had, written a lot about St. Peter. Now, most of the works of Hegesippus are lost. They haven't survived.
I was going to say, I don't think I've heard of them before, I would think.
Yeah. But Eusebius preserves a few of that, or a little of that material. So that's good for us. And then you also got to be remembered that the early Christians knew of they called the Gospel of Mark the memoirs of St. Peter.
Really?
Yeah, and so Mark was another one of Peter's proteges.
Okay.
And Mark shuttled. He's also called John Mark at other times. And John Mark shuttled between, being with Peter. He also spent time with Paul. He was probably a relative of Barnabas, who was one of Paul's associates. So what Mark has to say in that gospel, it's something where we ought to think, well, what Mark is writing down, because he wasn't an apostle himself.
That's true.
What Mark was writing down, was based on what Peter had taught him and what Peter had related to him. So again, the direct stuff is somewhat limited. But if we sort of poke around a little bit, this is what historians do.
Right.
Some of these other connections can also be made.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, well said, and like I said, it's probably that's the reason why I never heard of him, because a lot his stuff got lost, and which is quite a shame, because just think of what else we could have known if it was if it was all lost.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is part of studying the history of the ancient world, regardless of the topic.
Sure.
That much more has been lost than has survived to come down to us. Right. And that's just sort of a professional hazard, I suppose.
Yeah.
But here's another thing too, and
sure.
This question, sometimes you hear, well, why wasn't this recorded? Why was this mentioned? Et cetera and so on. Remember that the Christian community was a persecuted community.
True.
And from very early on, the Christian leadership said, if you don't have to get martyred, don't. Okay? Stay out of trouble. Okay.